demonstrated 3D printed miniatures such as these two here on this channel before and discussed the pros and cons of them. However, seeing as my main content is conversions and kit bashing, I thought it's time to see how 3D printing can help me out in these sorts of projects. I'm Pete the Wargamer, and in this video I'll be looking at 3D printed conversion components. Now, this isn't the first time that I've used conversion components from a 3D printer. I did feature the use of one in my Talon Desert Rider guide, but this was mainly because the company who made those torsos had temporarily stopped cast resin production. And besides this, is just the tip of the iceberg in regards to what is available. So I began my search online for conversion parts. I've already featured places like Thingiverse in my previous video, but there are other locations to source these free 3D printable components from, such as Cults 3D. As I've said before, you sometimes need to get a little creative with how you search for your components, using phrases like Space Elves or instead of Eldar, or Space Knights instead of Space Marines. However, there are plenty of components who have familiar names associated with them, so stick Imperial Fist into the search box and chances are you'll get some results. But free sites aren't the only source of conversion components. There are a number of sites that allow you to buy 3D printable parts and miniatures, such as Reptilian Overlords, who I featured before, and Anvil Industry. Anvil Industry are well known for their cast resin components, but they've recently dipped into the world of 3D printing files. They have a Patreon that gives access to monthly themed bundles, and after a couple of months, these packs then become available to purchase from their website. But regardless of where you choose to acquire your 3D printable parts from, once you've found a few of the files that you want to print, you just need to download and prep them for printing. Now, I'm not going to fully cover the file prep process here, mainly because I've already done that in my previous 3D printing guide, but it's also different depending on which kind of 3D printer you're using. But as a basic guide, I use Prusa Slicer to create my component supports, before using Chitubox to set up my plate and slice the files. With these ready, I am ready to print. The printer I'm using this time around is the Elegoo Mars Pro. It was sent to me by Elegoo to try out, and instead of just doing a straight review of it, I thought I'd put it to use in a guide instead. So, the Elegoo Mars Pro is a UV photo curing 3D printer, which basically means that instead of heating up a filament for printing, it uses a UV projecting LCD screen to cure photosynthesis resin one layer at a time. With this particular printer, I'm using some Elegoo ABS-like grey resin. Now, I'm not 100% sure what the exact difference between ABS-like and other printing resins are, but I found from a little reading that ABS is a little tougher than other resins at the expense of fine detail. So really, what you use is up to your personal preference. The grey colouring is nice though. As I'm most used to grey plastic and cast resin components, it's much more of a familiar result. But in terms of printing, I found the Elegoo Mars was really straightforward to set up. It was no real different from other these kind of printers to set up. You have to level the plate, you have to make sure that you fill up the resin to a certain level, and I was able to use my usual workflow of Prusa Slicer and Chitubox. Incidentally, I'll include my print settings for it in the description below if you want to try one out for yourself. But as is always the case in these kinds of things, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So let's see what kinds of things I was able to print out. So after running a few prints, I was left with this pile of bits, all of which probably cost me less than a few dollars worth of resin and isopropyl, with the exception of some of the paid for components of course. Either way, I was able to source a whole bunch of different component types. I found some blank Primus torsos, something that I have often created myself by trimming away chest iconography. These will be great for conversions, but also to test out power armor paint schemes without actually using your expensive models. In addition to these, I was also able to find a whole bunch of Space Marine conversion parts. Some of them are your regular chapter theme components, such as these Imperial Fist parts. However, there were also a good number of components that were a little more exotic. These Guron Visa parts are a great way to turn your regular Space Marines into members of the Tau Empire, and without carving up a Tau Crisis battlesuit in the process. Now, it will be quite hard to get these kind of components normally, so 3D printing really does allow you to do these kind of things. However, as is usually the case with things, the best quality sculpts were the ones that you pay for. These final parts are from Anvil Industries Digital Forge. It's run through their Patreon, and your support gives you a pack of printable components each month, and each month has a different theme, and a few of the components I printed off here was from their Trencher pack. Perfect for giving your Imperial Guardsmen a little more World War I flair, or proxying some Death Corps of Krieg. So, it's clear that 3D printing offers an excellent range of choice for conversions, be it paid or for free. However, the choice matters little if the quality of the components isn't up to spec. So let's talk about the level of detail and the quality of the sculpt. As is the case with most things, I found that the paid for components generally do tend to be better, with the free components mostly being made by amateur 3D modelers. So let's use Anvil Industries parts as the benchmark. I featured their regular cast resin parts on my channel before, so this is quite interesting to compare their 3D printed components, which I have here on the left, with some of their cast resin components here on the right. The quality for both is pretty good. Obviously, the 3D printed parts will vary in quality based on the printer you use and the quality that you print at. I printed all my parts at 0.02mm height, which I think gave me an approximate quality to the cast resin here. So when it comes to 3D printing, you can see, at least from these unpainted parts, that you can expect to see a similar level of quality. However, the best way to show you what these components actually are like is to use them in a conversion and then paint them up. The components I have here are from Anvil Industries Trencher Pack. They are comparable in size and scaling with Games Workshop's Astra Militarum range, so allow us to create some excellent regiment conversions. After looking at these greatcoat legs, the basic flak armour and tank on the back of the torso, the first regiment that came to mind was the Savlar Chem dogs. I have tackled these guys in plastic before, but as I didn't use greatcoat legs, I wasn't super happy with the results. So let's try this one again. The first task was to join the torso and the legs together with some superglue. The legs have a slightly raised plug protruding from the waist, which fits into the hole at the torso. However, if you're using these legs with Cadian torsos, for example, you'll want to cut this away and file it smooth. In order to maintain that link to the Games Workshop's Astra Militarum, I opted to use the Lasgun arms from the Cadian kit. As I've already said, these components are designed for this purpose, so the arms can be superglued to the torso with no adjustments necessary. For the head, I once again chose to use a Warhammer component. I took one of the gas mask heads found in the Gene Stealer Cult upgrade sprue and filed down some of the ridges on the forehead to make him look a little more human. The combination of bald head and gas mask worked together nicely to give us the drug-crazed face of a Savlar Chem dog. Finally, I just needed to bulk out the waist with some equipment. Again, I took these from the Cadian sprue. However, due to the torso already having pouches attached, I needed to cut these up and spread them around the body a little. I separated the ammo pouch and bayonet from the canteen using my knife before cleaning up the cuts. These were then superglued to either side of the model to finish it. So at this point, all that was left to do was to create a base and apply a coat of paint, which left me with this. And here we have the completed Savlar Chem dog. Now that the model is painted, you can see just how the 3D printed legs and torso work alongside the plastic components. Not only is the level of detail to the same standard, but the scaling is spot on. If you weren't already aware, you'd probably have a hard time even noticing that they were 3D printed without close inspection. It's a good demonstration of just what can be achieved with 3D printing. Even if you're not looking to print your whole army, just adding a few extra bits here and there can not only add a little personalization to your force, but also opens up weapon options. For example, the Chaos Havocs kit only comes with a single sought after Reaper chain cannon, but with 3D printing, you can take as many as you like. There is of course the extra work involved with 3D printing. The finding of the files, the prep and the cleaning all takes extra work, as does the setup costs. However, I can help with that a little, as Elegoo, as well as providing me with this printer, have given me a discount code that you can use to get hold of a printer for a little cheaper, and I'll include a link to that in the description below. In addition to that, I would also highly recommend checking out Anvil Industry. They have a huge range of cast resin components, as well as a steadily increasing back catalogue of STL files that are available in a number of different themes, and links to those guys can be found in the description below as well. So, as always, I just want to say a big thank you to all of my supporters and the folks who use my affiliate links. If you would like to help me out with making these videos, you can support me on Buy Me a Coffee as a one-off or as an ongoing membership, and you can find a link to that below. Your help is always greatly appreciated, and if you like this video, then check out my other conversion guides, and please do consider subscribing. And so, all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and goodbye.